Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode. So, have you been living under a rock for the last few months? That's the only way you have been missing about ChatGPT and a few other AI tools available nowadays. Everyone is speaking about them. Every single place online there is a mention, an example of how to use it. And I wanted to explore a bit more of what that can be for the service and the WFM industry. So I invited one of my best friends, Adam Kruze. Adam is the workforce manager for PlanetArt, and together with him, we will go deep on trying to figure out what can we expect from these tools, how can we benefit from them, different use cases. So buckle your seatbelts and let's go. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Andre. How are you?
Doing well. Really excited to be speaking with you today. Let's go straight to a tough one. So we have been asking for everyone that joins help to define what workforce management means. What does it mean to you?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind are the three things that have been drilled into my mind over and over again over the years, which are forecasting, scheduling, and real-time management. Those are like the three areas that first pop into my mind. But as I've done this position over the years, what I've learned is it's way more than just the three areas that you can kind of sum it up in at a high level. There's so much more that goes into workforce management that then that's what's on the surface level. You get to work with so many different departments, and there's so much more than just workforce management. Um, I like to use the term when I describe it to when people ask me what I do. I like to use resource optimization as kind of a term that people can understand what it means. When I say workforce management, people are a little confused on what that means. But when I say resource optimization, everybody can kind of immediately know, oh, so you're there to make things more efficient. And that's really what I think we're all about, is making it more efficient. And it's not just the workforce piece that we make more efficient. There's so much more that we get into, especially as time has gone and workforce management has evolved with the technology that's come out over the years. We're much more than just the workforce optimization. We optimized our resources in a number of ways, whether it's the software that we're using, the number of people that we're hiring, all those kinds of things.
It's a good point. Most times, they still focus on supply and demand and mitigating the gap
Mm-hmm.
and optimizing that. But I think I don't know what you think, but I think over the last few years, especially now with the focus on the employee well-being, there
Mm-hmm.
are organizations recognizing that WFM can have a very important role on helping set up schedules or balance workload in a way that allows for a better and promotes a better work-life balance into the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice that change?
Yeah, I think it has to do with a number of things, technology improvements, but I also think the hiring practices for workforce management have changed a lot over the years too. I see workforce management as a lot more diverse than it used to be. So I think getting a diversity of input is really important. And what I'm also seeing a lot of too is a lot of the workforce management personnel or people in the industry that I talked to, um, a lot of them have come up through the work through call centers. So they started as an agent. I know that's where you got your start. It's where I got my start. It's where so many people in workforce management have gotten their start. And I really think that the experience that we had as agents, as frontline people, colors the lens that I look through as I'm doing my work in workforce management. And that's another thing too. I think depending on the philosophy and culture of the company that you're working in, workforce management can mean different things. What I've always tried to do in the last several years, and what I learned a lot from you, is trying to be human in the workforce management world. Thinking of what is the impact. There's so much emphasis put on the impact on the business, but what's really important is considering the impact on the front lines too. Because if you're not paying attention to the impact that you're having on the front lines, you're going to have a lot of turnover, a lot of attrition. You're not going to have an engaged front line who's going to be able to really work with customers in that way. So I think
It's like a
Yeah, I think
snowball
that's part of the
effect
change I've
that
seen.
builds up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now that we are speaking about well-being and the changes, one of the recent changes that I think everyone on workforce is dealing with, we spoke a lot on previous episodes, is about remote work and the different combinations of what that entails. Not to create the debate, how much do you think that remote work has an impact on how we do things on the planning side and all the WFM routines?
Man, it's on for workforce planning side, it's really exciting when you hear remote work. It's like for me, it opens up so much more the ability to hire in quickly. So for me, remote work is really exciting. I personally enjoy, coming into an office. If the camera were on, if your audience could see, they'd see me in an office right now. But having the ability to, like you mentioned, work-life balance, but also in terms of just opening up for people in areas that may not have opportunities. So it's great for, people who are looking to get their career started. But for me, selfishly, it opens up a huge opportunity in terms of just being able to hiring capacity quickly, hiring skilled people. So there might be an area of the country that's, maybe below market, for where the company is located. You can set up shop in a geographic area and hire up a bunch of people really quickly who are anxious for work. I think it's great.
Mhm.
It's a win all around. There's definitely some challenges with it. I think the biggest challenge that we've been struggling, that I've seen companies struggle with, and I've personally struggled with since the beginning of the pandemic, has been the just getting the work situation in terms of the technology with the like telephony solutions, people having consistent wireless, making sure that the proper laptops get out, that the laptops hold a charge, all these little things that can just completely throw off your plan. It's like, oh, we hired up, 50 new temps for our peak season, and then 20 of their laptops don't work, or 10 of their Citrix isn't working, or their password wasn't set up. So there's these big logistic problems I think that have come out of the remote workspace, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for people out there to solve some of those problems. I've been waiting for some of those solutions to come along. Surprised I
For a
haven't
long
seen them yet,
time.
but yeah.
And I think it's you made a very good point, because when I think about the opportunities that remote work presents to people that are working on different geographic areas, so I think even the economy, I mean, it's probably really, really early to say, but I think the economy
Mhm.
would benefit a lot from a more diverse pool of talent, opens for people to seek, like we're speaking about well-being and work-life balance. People
Mhm.
can go to other areas of the country, just seek a different type of life outside probably big cities. And I think
Mhm.
that when is properly balanced, I think it's definitely one of the beauties behind remote work, with all of the challenges that you named that
Yeah.
impact their ability to do the work. But I think it's actually really cool. And I know if there is any kind of the research done already on that, apart from feedback, we can read feedback on social media, there is plenty of examples, but I think on the long term I would love to see how the economy will change, and this can have dramatic impacts on real estate, etc., etc. But there are so
Oh
many
yeah.
areas of our society that could be impacted, that would be interesting to see what businesses will evolve, and what for us what the priorities will be in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing seeing the downstream effects that it has on it, and not only the positive that I focused on mostly, but some of the negatives. In terms of like downtowns. I saw an article yesterday that was talking about New Yorkers who work remotely spend on average almost $5,000 less per year in the city. And you multiply 5,000 by how many New Yorkers there are working remotely. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely big impacts. And it's what I one thing that I learned about was like the capital doesn't really disappear, it just changes hands. And so when that money isn't being spent downtown, where is it being spent? Who is acquiring
Mhm.
that capital now that it's not being spent there? So really, really interesting. Yeah. And like you said, we'll keep our eye on that space and see what
Yeah,
the trends are.
the local economies of the small companies, small businesses that are very local, more normally closer to where people actually live outside the bigger cities, the suburbs are. they will pop. I think, like you said, money will just find its way to flow around. And I think,
Hmm.
I mean, we started speaking about WFM, we are speaking about economics, but I think it's everything is super related. So
Yeah,
let's
for sure.
let's jump on another topic, which for everyone that already saw the title of today's episode, there is a new tool everyone is speaking about. There is posts. I mean, everywhere you go, there is someone speaking about ChatGPT, even if it's just
Hmm.
saying the name because they use it or they just ask the question. I personally have been using it a lot to solve small basic stuff. What's your usage? Like we were speaking before we start recording
Yeah.
of one of your examples. I think it's a perfect one
Hmm.
with when we in previous episodes spoke about learning, and I think yours is just a
Yeah.
spot on that opportunity. Do you wanna
Yeah. Yeah, and
share?
I'm this is one topic that I'm really passionate about is helping people progress in their careers, and I think ChatGPT has opened up a huge opportunity, while at the same time has also caused me a little bit of anxiety um, for it. So while at the same time, what I'm using it for, my use case for ChatGPT has been learning SQL. So recently, I came on into a position, and I have to do a little digging into the data myself a little bit more than what I've been used to in the past. So I needed to dig in and start learning some SQL. So I had been reaching out to one of the analysts that I work with, and he said, "Hey, have you tried this Chat GPT thing?"
This can solve you
I was
some
like, "Okay."
questions.
Exactly. It was like, "You keep coming over to my desk. Here's something really cool."
Self-service.
And yeah, exactly. So, so at that point, up to that point, I had used ChatGPT. I'd just been, doing just funny stuff with it. Like, I think I had used it for a couple meal plans for the week. It was like, it just threw together some recipes for me. I want, plant-based, whatever. And it gave me some pretty good recommendations. But when that analyst mentioned it to me, I was like, oh, that's a pretty good idea. So I went in and I started doing, I started working with SQL the way I normally would. I hit a road bump, typed in my question, and ChatGPT came back with a response, a really well written explanation, along with an example of the code, and then another kind of summary at the bottom. And then I was like, huh. So I started working a little bit more, used what I learned in there, hit another road bump, ended up pasting the code in and was like, hey, what's wrong with this? And it pointed out the exact reason it was wrong within seconds, and then gave me the code written correctly. And it blew my mind. So what would have normally taken me in that scenario, I would have gone online, done a Google search trying to find, hey, how do I do this? And, it would take me probably half an hour just to figure out the right query, the right search term to use. It's just like with Excel, when you're learning Excel, like how am I supposed to ask this question so that the internet knows what I mean, and then once you figure out how the right way to ask, you got to sort through all these articles about, like, some guy talking about why he became an analyst before you get to the meat that explains what it is. So ChatGPT saved me so much time. At least probably I would estimate probably 2 to 3 hours it saved me in that one instance alone. And that was websites that I didn't have to go to, time I didn't have to waste. But at the same time, we're talking about negative impacts of stuff too. It's like with this, I didn't end up going to all those different websites. Those are people who are making a living from sharing their knowledge. They've got ads on those sites that I wasn't looking at, that I wasn't clicking on. Google, I didn't use Google that whole time, so that's an opportunity that Google lost. So it's really amazing just how impactful this was for me. And it was that day, in that instance, where I was like, because I had heard people say, oh yeah, it's going to change the world. It wasn't until I used it, and in that instance, it was just mind blown. Yeah, this is going to change the world.
Yeah, and I know that Google, as a response, I think they are going to make available their own version. I'm trying to recall
Hmm.
name. Do you remember?
Yeah, Bard.
Yeah, Bard. Yeah, so
Bard. Yeah.
they will. I saw some videos on how it works, and if you have like the same prompt, similar style, but then you have all the feed that you would normally search online, it will be interesting to to see what it is. And I'm saving for us to do some prompts here. I have ChatGPT open, so we'll do some prompts to see, like, specifically to WFM. Let's see what it says. Before
Interesting.
we go there, I wanted to also ask, still connected with AI. I don't want to mix the two contents together, but
Hmm.
AI is being on the forefront. We have speaking a lot about huge tech companies laying off thousands of people. I think, I don't recall the exact numbers from Google, but was like really, really high numbers.
It's like half a
And
million. Yeah.
yeah, I think there is a lot of conversations about how the two actually happen more or less together. Then does this has an impact? Yes or no? I
Hmm.
have been like going that rabbit hole of trying to find answers myself, but which I don't know the answer to. But like,
Hmm.
you were mentioning about the opportunity that Google lost since ChatGPT. ChatGPT, I think it was one of the fastest adoption sites compared to
Yeah.
like Instagram and things like that. So it's definitely here to stay, along with other AI tools. I'm not sure if you are familiar ones, but there are a few that even make PowerPoints for you. You just give
Hmm.
prompts of what you want to do, and they build your PowerPoints. How do you think that will impact the future of work? Not specifically just workforce management. Like,
Hmm.
how do you see this blending together? Do you have a view?
Man, yeah. I mean, it's really hard to, because it could go so many different ways. But the way that I was talking to my wife about it was, it to me, what the way that I could see it is, we all end up with our own little personal assistant, basically, that we kind of ask and talk to, and the internet turns into basically like a telephone book and a store, kind of. Whereas like all the
I see.
information that you need, it's like you don't need like the information, like history or and all that stuff. For me, I think that's where a lot of the knowledge kind of requests are going to be asked from, your personal bot. And then when it comes to like making a purchase, or finding somebody who can fix your roof, you'll go online and kind of take a look at it there. Whereas this bot, this personal bot that you're going to have, is basically going to be with you all the time in any manifestation. It'll be on your desktop, your phone, wherever you go, it'll be. And then, some technology that we haven't even thought of yet. Um, and, you could just ask it questions throughout the day. If you're a customer service manager and you want to know how many people you need to hire for your peak season, you can just start spouting out, I think we're going to have this many calls. I think, sales will increase 20%, and,
You
give
are
me
like
three
brainstorming with
scenarios.
your assistant, right?
Exactly, kind of brainstorming, but getting immediate response. Whereas, you would have to kind of throw ideas to the wall and then, you know, work on them. Now you can kind of throw some ideas, and it'll give you almost immediate feedback. But it's also, it's dangerous too. I mentioned, the use case that I had. I started asking it some questions specific to workforce, and I got to one part which I knew would be tricky for it, which was, what's the difference between adherence and conformance? Because this is something that I, in my own career, I've interchanged those two terms many times, and I think one of our mutual colleagues, Jose, corrected me on a number of occasions, where like, hey, you're using the wrong term. So it could not tell me what, it could correctly tell me what adherence was, but it could not tell me what conformance was. It gave me an incorrect definition the first time. I can't remember what it was. And I said, no, that's not right. It has to do with, I can't remember, but I was trying to point it in the right direction. And then it came back with another incorrect answer, where it said, oh, it's the measure of how in conformance agents are to service level. And it's like, no, agents aren't in conformance to service level. What are you talking? So I had to again correct it. So
Blending
it's,
concepts, right? It's still
yeah,
not knowing exactly what is defined.
yeah. And that's the thing. That's my kind of approach with caution is, that immediate example that I found was like, oh man, the people are going to lose their jobs over this. People are
Mhm.
going to, they're going to lose out on opportunities, because I'm hearing a lot of people are using it to write cover letters now when they're in the application process, and even, helping improve their resume and stuff. And that's all great stuff. But this all, for me, kind of goes back to, there needs to be a human involved at some point, either overseeing the knowledge
Mhm.
base, some kind of corrective measures, because I could see how over time the information is incorrect only slightly at first, and then the information gets more and more incorrect, and then over time you realize that the information is completely incorrect. How did we get to this point? Well, it was really slow, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden here we are.
To be honest, how it will evolve, I think it has a lots of potential. We spoke about another thing, but I think about education. So I think it can be a
Mhm.
huge ally for education,
Yeah.
especially because I think when we look at our education systems, and I think this is common from everyone I spoke in the world. I think multiple
Mhm.
countries are going through that process about, is our education system still effective? Are we still
Mhm.
learning in the best way? So I think when we look back, I think nothing changed dramatically over the last 100 years, probably in learning. I
Mhm.
mean, there are differences, but we still learn the same a lot by repetition, by memory, repetition, memory, repetition. And
Yeah.
I think platforms, AI platforms such as this one, gives you the opportunity to actually learn by yourself at your own pace,
Mhm.
but learn in a completely different way, in a more practical ways, where sometimes it's
Yeah.
very theoretical and people are basically engaged with different problems differently. And I think this would be interesting. So I don't know if this can be added to our education systems and processes, but I think would be
Mhm.
definitely an opportunity. But everyone that is learning, like you said, SQL or learning a new skill, it probably can
Yeah.
enhance and fast track your process for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I mean, it's good to see how things will evolve, and I think will be interesting to see how this play out. And by the way, while we were speaking, I typed the prompt in WFM. What's the difference between conformance and adherence? And let me just read what he told me. In
Okay.
workforce management, conformance refers to how well actual agents' activities match their scheduled activities, while adherence refers to how well agents follow their schedule in real time.
Okay.
Conformance is typically measured after the fact and compares what was actually done to what was scheduled. Adherence is monitored in real time and provides visibility to whether agents are adhering to their schedules or not.
No,
So
mostly correct.
it's getting better.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Somehow it learned from your prompt, and
I was gonna
I will
say.
paste I will paste this prompt with the release of this episode so everyone can see exactly
Mhm.
what ChatGPT wrote. Moving along, future. So we spoke about the present and the AI is here for the present. We spoke about finance, education, and so many other things.
Mhm.
What do you think the future looks like for this industry, specifically where we are
Yeah,
in?
man. So with it's for me the AI and seeing what AI is capable of. For me, I really think in 5 to 10 years, I think there's going to be a really huge kind of fundamental change in the way things are done in a number of industries. But I think workforce management will be one of those things that will change. I mentioned before I'm using it to learn SQL, but based on what I've been reading, it's being trained to basically eliminate the need for SQL. You basically just need to connect your large language model um, to your database, and then you can just start asking it questions, and it'll just start looking in your database for you. There's no need for SQL. So while I'm sitting here using it to learn SQL, it's like, am I even going to need this? Because it's going to be doing this stuff for me soon. So
It's like the wizards
that's,
on web design that before you had to code your websites, now it's just drag and drop and you just put everything you want.
yeah. Yeah. So I have kind of two visions for the future. One's a darker vision, one's the lighter vision, and the
Which
lighter
one do you
vision
want to go
is
first?
I'll do the lighter. Well, let's do the darker vision. Let's end on a high note. The dark
Good.
vision is there's an episode of the Twilight Zone. I can't remember what it's called. It's there's something like the whiz bang machine or something like that, where it focuses on this manager who brings in this robot or machine or computer that is going to automate everything in his manufacturing facility. And slowly over time, he starts eliminating more and more positions. And at one point, he's eliminated so many of these positions. And this guy that's been with the company for so many years, is just trying to get him to understand, like, I'm a human being, and I need, work is part of my life. It's what gives me meaning and all this stuff. And the manager's just like, it needs to be more efficient. And then eventually the episode ends with the manager ending up eliminating his own position. So, and then he finds himself in the bar having a drink, complaining to the guy that he fired so many years before about how, he's really upset that he's a human being and he's more than just a person doing a job and
Yeah.
all this stuff. So that's one part where I see, it could go to such an extent that corporations get so greedy with it that they just start, eliminating positions and putting these things in place. And then it ends up creating all kinds of quality and knowledge issues. But the for me, which I think is the more likely
So
scenario,
that will lead to kind of a Skynet type of thing. It's like
yeah,
doomsday at the extreme.
yeah, well, maybe not Skynet, but at least, like, I've heard this, like, term thrown around, like universal basic income.
Yeah.
If so many positions are eliminated and so many jobs are gone, what is everybody going to do? So instead of, grabbing your pitchforks and torches and, going down
Yeah.
to, the capital, they'll give us, all a certain amount of money per month so that we can, basically live.
Enjoy the world.
Yeah,
Enjoy her.
which, sounds good on the surface, but as anybody who's had a job where you don't do anything all day, that's going to be a miserly experience, I think. So I think the more likely and the brighter side of the future is that there's going to be so many more opportunities. I've been to so many conferences and seen so many webinars about, the frontline customer service agents are going to be able, AI is going to enable them to really give a really depth of experience to the customer. It's not going to be just transactional in terms of, like, I didn't get my thing. Where's my thing? Oh, it's at this point. Instead, it's going to be like, the system can automate those really basic questions. Now it's going to be, when a customer calls in and you actually get to speak to them, the system is, the agent doesn't have to lift a finger, and the system is listening and doing all these things for the associate or for the agent. Now all the agent has to do is present what is in front of them to the customer in a way that the customer understands and is going to make them want to purchase again. So I see this as really, that for me has been a lot of lip service up to this point. I've
Mhm.
seen so many executives talk about, like, oh, our technology enables the frontline agents to give, no, I really
Yeah.
have yet to see one of those customer experiences be really mind blowing. And I think once this technology gets implemented in a few years and really has a lot of experience under its belt, I think it's going to start to enable that. And I think it's going to cause a sea change too. And then customer service, I've been thinking about this too, like in terms of customer service being more transactional. And whereas I think this is going to cause more of like a shift to more customer advocacy, where your job as a customer advocate or customer advocacy associate or agent is going to be to advocate for the customer, find out what the customer wants, and take that information to all points in the business. Because as so many people have said, and I don't think enough companies realize this, like the information that your customers are giving you is gold. Like, if you want to
Yeah.
know where to take your business, if you want to know how to make your customers happy, take the
Listen to
information
them.
that they're giving you, and this is really going to enable that.
Yeah. That I agree. It's gold, and more we do it, the more we benefit. Let's see how the technology will evolve and what kind of future that exactly looks like. I hope for the
Yeah.
brighter one,
Yeah.
but let's see what we will get from there. I was thinking about, we normally say and ask questions about, if there were no limitations in budget or resources, what would be the one thing you fix in the WFM industry? With
Hmm.
so many things we spoke about the future and what different
Yeah.
shapes and forms that can take, what would be the one, if you had to invest all of that, where what would you fix?
Yeah. So all anxiety about the future aside, and what that means for the growth of workforce management, I would say I would probably focus on bringing in the next generation of professionals, because I think there's not enough, I think, exposure to all the different opportunities within just the call center industry as a whole, contact center industry, whatever you want to call it. Workforce management is just one of those areas of opportunity for people to grow in. I think the call center industry is great, in terms of, I've seen a lot of the Gen Z questions about like, where can I find a job? I go on Reddit a lot and read these career posts and stuff. And there's a lot of questions from younger folks just coming out of school, and they're coming into right now what seems like a recession with all these layoffs happening, and people are having a hard time finding these jobs. Is exposing people to the call center industry as a career opportunity. There's a career path here. It's, you can, sure, you start on the ground floor in a lot of situations, but I don't know of many other industries where you can come in without a college degree and work your way up to an executive position. I personally know several people who are like that, who don't have college degrees, who worked their way up through the call center industry and are now, making very handsome salaries for themselves and their families, which isn't everything. They've also got their work-life balance, and some of them are starting their own companies and that stuff too. So I think just exposing people to workforce management call centers as a career opportunity would be one thing. And then I think the other would be just awareness within the company of what workforce management does, making other teams aware and seeing how workforce management can help. We're kind of like internal consultants in a lot of ways. And we mentioned at the beginning of our discussion, resource optimizations. We're not just there in workforce management. There's so much more that we can help with. And I think as this technology and everything continues to evolve, I think workforce management will also continue to evolve, and we'll find more ways to make the companies more efficient.
Yeah, I love the fact that you invest back in the community and the people that helps enable the future. So I think that's super inspiring. Adam,
Yeah.
still just to close on inspiring, who inspire you the most to be who you are and why?
Who inspires me the most? I would say my family, my son in particular. Just, man, I remember, seeing my dad, not even seeing, but hearing my dad as I would wake up in the morning and hearing him leave for the office in the morning, and being like, man, he has to leave so early, and that must be tough. And when I wake up in the morning and I do it, and it's not so tough when I think about, him, relying on me and all that stuff. That's really what has been kind of motivating me in the last several years. But as far as like, kind of a moral compass and all that stuff, there's the name of the guy is, he's the founder of Goodwill. And whenever I have a moment where I'm feeling not as not quite as nice of a person on a day, I'll read a little bit about him. His name's Reverend Edgar J. Helms, and he was, as a historical figure to me, I call him like the Elon Musk of nonprofits. The dude was all over the place. If you read his biography, I mean, the man was just a ball of energy. He was just constantly going around. He was ahead of his time in so many different ways, in terms of like race relations, economic relations, just so many different things. A really inspirational character. And I think if anybody is looking for any kind of inspiration, that's a great place to start.
Adam, was great speaking with you. A lot to uncover, I think, in this episode, especially about what the future looks like and the power
Yeah,
of AI. I think we could speak for a few more hours about like AI
easily.
automation and easily without without any filters. I think it was a
Yeah,
great conversation. Thanks for joining me, and I'm looking
yeah,
forward to have another one with you in the future.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
thank you.
You too. My pleasure, Andre.